Hello, everybody, and welcome to another incubation talk. Today, we are speaking to Adriaan Jansen from Abbey Games, who I'm going to get on stage right now.
Hello.
Adriaan, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Could you quickly introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Adriaan Jansen. I am one of the founders of Abbey Games. We created the PC games, Reus, Renowned Explorers, and Godhood. And I'm one of the founders. I do most of the business things right now. And I'm also the lead or the designer of the team.
Great, so we're talking to the right person. The subject of today is collaboration, specifically how you outsource to external people. So at your time at Abbey, what kind of work did you have outsourced? What were you looking for?
So specifically, depending on the project that we're working on, we outsourced either a lot or not that much. So for Reus, for example, we outsourced almost everything except code and some part of the design. While for a game like Godhood, we only outsourced the marketing and the sound and music.
And why did you outsource those things for those projects? Is there a specific reason? When do you make the decision to actually outsource something?
So it started out being very smart about it. So at least here in the Netherlands, we can outsource something, or we can hire someone to do the job for a longer time, or we can hire someone to be part of the team entirely. And we started out with the first because that was the safest option, and we don't have the money nor the power of commitment to get a team together and stay together. So in that case, a freelancer is perfect. And later on, if we already had it in a team, we didn't outsource it. It's pretty obvious. How we are thinking about it right now is that if you have good boundaries and you know what you want, and you don't have a plan with that person as a person to be part of the team, then it's better to outsource.
Right.
So actually that goes for most things.
Yeah, because I was going to say, if you don't have a plan for that person within the team, which means you're looking at the personal side of things. So
Exactly.
There's someone that you would like to work with, but in the long term, inside of the team, you don't have a plan for them, then it's better to work on a freelance basis. So you still get their qualities, but not have to worry about.
Yes, there's also a split. A second split, because you could also give a contract for a specific time, of course, in the Netherlands. And that can be beneficial if you need the person for a longer time, or the person is not a freelancer yet, and then he or she will have all the social benefits taken care of by us as well. So,
Yeah, so let's go back to those boundaries you mentioned. That means beforehand, you also need to know what you want.
Yes.
Right? How do you determine what you want or what you need?
That's maybe the trickiest part. In general, I would say that, so for example, let's say an artist. We don't have a dedicated artist in our team, and we have to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? So if we would choose for a freelancer, at least one of us in the team should have a good view about what the art is going to be, and be able to explain that to someone else through briefing or all that kind of jazz. And the mistake we made in the past is sort of hire someone with the idea that person will figure out what the art of the game is going to be. Even though that none of us are artists, we should have a vision, and we should be able to lead that person, I would say, pretty strictly. Doesn't mean you have to be so strict, but you should be able to do it strictly, because you already have a view, and you already can guide that person to go to the right direction.
Yeah, but that might be an issue if you don't have those qualities in-house.
Yes.
You still need to make sure that you're able to describe what you want or what you need.
Yeah. So I would say that you at least need a little bit of that quality. You don't have to be able to draw it yourself, but you must be able to gather references, have a clear view about what your game is going to look like in the end. It helps also, by the way, if your game is already in a first stadium. So, for example, for Reus, we only started outsourcing art halfway through the project.
Right.
Before that, we just used programmer art basically to do it. And that will at least give you an idea of the composition, about what's important in the game, what's not important in the game, what the design space is, so that you can give design boundaries to what the art needs to do. And then you can start talking about it with an artist. And most of the times the artist is willing to sort of give you an idea about how they see it. And then you can agree with that or not. But you have to be pretty clear about what you want by yourself.
Right. And before you start working with someone, how do you check their quality? Because we talked a little bit before you entered about giving people a test assignment, but how did you go about that?
We actually gave smaller assignments during Reus, and if we just didn't like it, we stopped it.
Did you pay people for that?
Yes, we did. Yeah. At least in the Reus, we didn't pay upfront, but we paid in a way. It was kind of complicated, but we paid in a way of royalties. So even people who only did a few things and we didn't like what they did in the end, and we just stopped it at that point, they got a little bit of royalties as well. Because I think what we found out, like first thing first, if the art looks really good, that helps.
Yeah,
you're already gonna do what you already know, so that's not necessarily the issue. The issue is more like, does this person connect well with me? Do we can we communicate well? Do we share our ideas about things? And that's just not something that I found out to be very easy to know up front. I mean, you can do a test assignment and you can get like a 70% accuracy on getting the right person. But I think it's also always important to be aware that it's only 70%, and have a way to terminate the contract in a neat way. If that's possible.
Yeah, so the personal connection is maybe just as important. I mean, you obviously require good art. You said that yourself, but the personal connection is also important.
Yeah, I would say so, because the hardest part I think about freelancing is communication. Right. Because you're having a very clear communication channel. And yeah, if the communication goes slow or there's a lot of miscommunication, then it's going to be a very long, expensive, and annoying trip to get there.
Yeah. So talking about communication is one question in the Q&As. What kind of software do you use to work together with external partners communication-wise? So Slack, Discord, what did you use to communicate with people who are not inside the office?
Yeah, we use Slack, so we can send an invite for Slack. We also use Discord, which works just as fine. And the most important one, for me at least, is mail. Because that's the most clear cut. You have time to think about what you're going to communicate. It's not and I would advise to always do that. Always send a mail with the specifications.
Yeah, that's actually.
Yeah, you can use the other software later to fill in the details, but giving the scope of the things in mail is really something you can talk about and read back.
So, for instance, also part of communication are those briefs, right?
Yes.
Briefs need to communicate what you want and what you can offer as well. How did you go about creating a brief?
I would say that's something that we didn't do specifically well, except for maybe some things in Reus. So the hard part about making games is that in a lot of cases, you don't really know what you want yet, right? So you start out half of the project and you start making your game and you start inviting an artist or a sound designer or whatever to collaborate with that. And that either means a lot of briefs, because every month or every 2 months, things are a little bit different. Or you're asking the person, the freelancer, to have a certain commitment to the quality of the product. And that second one is a really wild gamble, because that you're asking so much more of that person to have a view on things. I mean, some do it, and then you're very lucky. But I would say that in general, it will mean that you will do a lot of briefs. So be prepared to brief every X weeks. Be prepared that sometimes you'll have to give like multiple assignments if that's if you're going to be strict about it.
Right.
But if you're lucky, you can find someone who says like, I will take care of the art in this and this kind of way, under this and these boundaries, and then you don't have to worry about it any much more. But we'll have to communicate like this. It is going to be a much more intense relationship to work with that person, but it's possible as well.
Right. And you said like for Reus, we weren't particularly good at it. You've had a lot of experience since Reus. So is there something that you would say you do better now than you did then?
Yes, I think something we would specifically do better now is giving more briefings, actually. So being more more precise about what we want, and not try to offload the organizational part of creating art or sound or whatever to the freelancer. That's not how it works. It's not like, okay, I need someone to do the art, I will hire a freelancer and the art will be done. No, it has to be part of the game. So there is a designer that's involved in it, there's infrastructure that's involved in it, and that person does not know the game like you do. So you'll have to be specific in your briefing, because you probably have a specific idea about it. And I think we became a lot more specific, or took more time to give better briefings, as well as take more time to communicate, to find out what we really want, instead of just saying, can you do the art for us, please?
But you also have to determine like how much time someone is going to spend on it, or how many assets they're going to deliver. How did you come to a decision on that? Did you know like the amount of art that you needed, and how does that work? How does that discussion go?
That's a very interesting topic, because it's actually a more broad planning topic. It also goes for people that are not freelancers. Also, you have exactly the same problem. And my philosophy in it is, you don't know, which is really annoying, but you do know your budget. So I would actually turn the process around, saying, okay, I have budget for, let's say, 4 more months, and I already worked 4 months. That means that I'm at the half of my project. That's the reality of what's going on, and that means that you as a person who has leadership over the planning, you have to reassess what you need and what you don't need. The multiple assignments or briefings for freelancers help, but it's actually a realization of a reality check. If you say, I'm gonna need all these assets on forehand, and you're talking about a planning that's more than 1 month away, you're probably fooling yourself, because there's a lot of things that you don't know, and there's a lot of things that you've just forgot, or that are way harder than you thought they were. So you as a person who does the planning and does the briefings, etc., I think you always must be nimble and able to say like, okay, I have budget for 4 more months. I already 4 months in. That means I'm at the half, and at the half of a project I should be this far. And that's what it is. So I need to rescope. Yeah.
And because for the freelancer, the same thing probably applies. They need to be a little bit flexible, but they also have a range of time in mind that they can or want to work for you, because they've got other jobs as well. They don't want to do 25 different iterations. So how do you get to a point where the artist says, okay, this is all I can do, this is what you get, and maybe you're not happy with the result?
Yeah, that can happen. I think that's fair, and it's for you as a person to think or to evaluate if you are happy with that relationship, because you might have been unreasonable, right? You might have been a person that asks a lot of iterations on a lot of things. And I would say, if you need more than 1 or 2 iterations, then probably your briefing or your vision
wasn't good enough.
Probably wasn't good enough, or the problem is just really hard, and you sort of just misplanned how complicated it was.
Yeah.
And that's for you to deal with. I don't think that's a problem of a freelancer in the end.
Did you ever decide on a set amount of iterations for an art piece, or?
No, because I think I'm more quick to draw the gun on that than the freelancers we worked with up till now.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with the way how I see the planning, right? Because I think like, well, okay, I still only have 3 months left. I can't put that much more effort into this because that means that something else will not get done. Or so I think it would be better. It would show at least of astute planning if you're the one pulling that gun. It's like, okay, we had enough iterations on this. Then the freelancer, unless the freelancer is just not good, and then you should just terminate the contract anyway.
Cool. There's a lot of questions coming in, so we might go change a little bit in topic. But do you include freelancers or outsourcing team members in team meetings? So how often do you chime in with freelancers to see how they are on track? Those are two different questions, but still. So do you include other people in the team? I think you've already mentioned that a little bit.
We did,
like when talking to freelancers. Sorry,
we did, but I would do it less right now. I would say that it would be more useful for the core team to have a clear vision about what to do with that freelancer, and then discuss that with the freelancer itself. Because having more people on the table, I mean, it might be useful for some things, but in our experience, we always were a group that's like, everybody has to be here, everybody has to talk about it. And in our experience, that's just really clouding, because in the end, you will always have some that have more context than the others.
It's better for one person to have the lead and then feedback to the rest of the group,
one or
how
two,
it's going.
So that the person always has someone to connect with.
This probably depends on the kind of work that you're asking for, but how often do you chime in with freelancers to see if they're on track?
I think it depends on the freelancer and depends on how far you are in a relationship with that person. If I already know that person pretty well, I don't check it that often. If I know that person is having a hard time doing something, I just check more. It's just something you have to feel like, does this person need more help from me? Or is this person like, I already have such a connection with this person. If I say 2 words, he or she can work for like a week.
Right. And tying into that, we talked a little bit amongst ourselves about personality and how it's important to have people that match your personality, but also people that are quite different in their personality. Otherwise, you might get a team full of the same kind of people. So how is personality important for you when you work with freelancers?
I think that's really personal in the sense that so some people might find it nice to have a freelancer that takes a lot of responsibility and might overrule you a little bit in a certain kind of way. And some people might find it nicer if you are working with someone who is really good at listening and following orders or just following the vision that you put out there. So I think that depends on you. I think as you work with people and or freelancers, doesn't have to be a freelancer, you will find out what works best for you. So for me, I think I'm pretty broad, but I tend to like people who I have to tell little, but also point out my responsibilities. So like, okay, but this is a design issue, you go solve that first.
Right. And when looking for freelancers, are there any like red flags? Is there something that like, well, not a personality type, but are there stuff that you're looking for? Are you referencing their work? What is kind of a red flag for you guys?
I would say that's more. I would say that's more on the personality kind of thing, and that would be something like. For a freelancer that when talks about the past, it actually goes the same for people working with in any direction. Someone who shifts blame away easily. A freelancer is somebody who should be able to work independently in a certain kind of way, and if that person keeps pushing failures towards the out world, I didn't have any responsibility in this, then then probably is going to be a hard road to work with that person.
You talked a little bit about the way you outsourced in the beginning, and it was a complicated way, and maybe not something you would do again. How would you go about it now? How are you going about it?
I actually like how we did it at first. It was maybe a little bit brazen, but it worked out pretty well. So what we did is we didn't have any money. or we had very little money, enough to pay the rent and some computers, but that's it. What we did was that every freelancer that we worked with, we said, you give us your hour rate, and we'll add all the hour rates of everybody working on the project together. And depending on that, the percentage that you have in the project, you will have a part of the royalties. Yeah, and that worked. I would say it worked well, and it didn't work well. So the thing that we wanted is create that sense like, oh, everybody's coming together and everybody has a share in the project, and that will really motivate them. And that didn't happen. So I can say that up front, because in the end, those people didn't have that much context about the project. It was not their project. They came in like halfway in. It was just something that sounded financially interesting if something went right. But what did happen was that it was pretty clear that we, Abbey Games, as time managers, were responsible for allocating those people. We didn't say like, okay, we're going to need you 3 days a week. It was more like, okay, in general, we think we will need you 3 days a week, but we'll ask you to come or we'll ask you to go. So it was our planning and our problem. And it also made sense money-wise. Like if somebody was sitting there doing nothing, it'd be weird that they would get a share while somebody,
Yeah. So in that example, you couldn't pay anyone until after the game got released, right? Everybody knew that, so everybody was on board. Have you had other instances where you started working with a freelancer and you needed to pay them earlier than you made money? How did that work? Does someone get paid just only after they did everything? Did you pay people in installments? How did you?
So after those, we didn't do that anymore, and we did as you discussed right now. In that case, I think it will be pretty general to say that you pay like 25% or something upfront for each assignment, and then you pay the rest when it's done. And especially if you have a good relationship with that freelancer, that's never going to be a problem. Okay,
that sounds about right. We're already coming up to the end because Sonia is answering almost the same questions in about 5 minutes. One question going back to the briefs and communication, talking about art. Did you show them to communicate your vision? Did you show them concept art or images from similar looking games, mood boards, that kind of thing? Or was it more about talking to them and
no, we really showed a lot. Like always, we try to show as much as possible because that's the language that we're talking in the end. That's what we want. So we used a lot of mood boards. We used a lot of programmer art just to show composition, right? Like this is what the game looks like, and we can change a few things, but this is the general composition of things. So yeah, we use a lot of visual things, other games as well. The more visual things, the better.
And last question, just to round off, maybe you will repeat yourself, but that's okay. So what are the biggest differences in how you handled freelancers when you started and when and now? And what would you say is kind of your biggest learning?
The biggest difference would be that we relearned that the team or the product owner or the designer, whatever is doing most of the planning, is really responsible for that the freelancer can do their good job. It's not, I need a freelancer to do the art. Here is the game. You go do the art. No, then you're asking for a team member, not a freelancer.
Right.
That's, I think, the biggest thing that we've learned, and the biggest change for us is that we can now pay freelancers up front, basically, that means that we also learn to make better assignments because of that. Just telling them, do this, and that is.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The time flies. We're at 24 minutes and 30 seconds, and we have 25 minutes. So thank you so much. I'll talk to you later, but thanks so much for being here.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
I'll see you soon.